Howdy everyone. We are now looking at classifying conics. This will be the last video in the conics section series. Given a general form for a conic section, which is right here, ax squared plus bx plus cy squared plus dy plus e equals 0. What we want to do is take this equation and try to put it into one of the standard forms for our conic sections, be it a parabola, ellipse, circle, or hyperbola. Now, the only things that we really need to look at are going to be the a value and the c values from this format. So these two things right here are what we need to pay particular attention to. Those are the coefficients for the x squared and the coefficient for the y squared terms. And so how we tell what type of conic section it is going to be dependent upon what those values are. If those two values are equal to each other, then you have a circle for a conic section. If those two numbers are not equal to each other and they're not the same sign, they are the same sign, then what you have is an ellipse. If those two numbers, one of them is 0, not both of them, but just one of them is 0, you're going to have a hyperbola. Now, if one of them is 0, what that means is that your equation will only have an x squared or only have a y squared. You won't have x squared and y squared in your equation. And if a and c are just opposite signs, then what you have is a hyperbola. All right, so let's take a look at a few of these and identify what type of conic section we have. All right, this first one, your a value is the coefficient in front of the x squared, that is 6. The c value is coefficient in front of the y squared, that is 9. They are not equal to each other, and they are the same sign, which means this is an ellipse. All right, the next one, your a value is 4. Your c value, there's an understood 1 right here, so that is -1. Well, a and c are opposite signs from each other, so this will be a hyperbola. The next one, your a value is 12, and your c value is also 12. A and c are equal to each other, which means this is a circle. And then the last one, we have an a value of 4. There is no y squared term, which means the c value would be 0. And that meets this requirement that a is 0 or c is 0, giving us a parabola. All right, so what we're going to do now is we are going to take each of those equations and transform them from the general form to the standard form. And for a circle, our standard form is right here. Well, if you notice, what we have is our x's in parentheses being squared, and the same thing with the y's. So we're going to use our procedure of completing the square on these. All right. To do that, what we're going to do is combine the x's together. So you're going to have 12x squared minus 36x plus 12y squared plus 48y equals 0. Now, in order to complete the square, the coefficient on the x squared has to be 1. So to get rid of this 12, we factor 12 out of both terms. When you factor 12 from this term, you're left with x squared. Factor 12 from this term, you're left with minus 3x. We have to do the same thing over here. Factor out the 12, leaves you with y squared plus 4y equals 0. Now I left a space here intentionally because that's what we're going to complete the square with. We have to fill in a number right here that will make this a perfect square trinomial. Now the process for being able to find out what this number is you take the negative 3, take that middle term right here on the linear term, divide it by 2, and then you square that. Well, that's going to give us 9/4. That's the number that we insert right here. Now, because I just added something to the left side of my equation, I have thrown my equation out of balance. To rebalance my equation, I have to add the same thing over here to the right side of my equation. Well, keep in mind that I did not just add a 9/4 to the left side of my equation. I added a 12 times 9/4. Well, 12 times 9/4 is 37. So I need to add 37 to this side of our equation. All right, so we're going to do the same thing over here. Completing the square, you take this term, you divide it by 2, and then we square that. Well, 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 2 squared is 4. So that's what we're going to insert right here. All right, now once again, keep in mind that we didn't just add a 4, we added a 4 times a 12, which is 48. So we're going to add 48 to the right side of our equation. All right, so bringing this down, this now becomes 12 multiplied by x minus 3/2 squared. Well, this is x minus 3/2. If you review yourself from earlier about how do you complete the square. If you factor this down, this factors down to x minus 3/2 times x minus 3/2. Remember FOIL, first terms give you x squared. That's this one. Outside is negative 3/2 x. Inside is negative 3/2 x. When you add those together, you get negative 3x for a middle term. And then the last terms are negative 3/2 times negative 3/2, giving you positive 9/4. And when you multiply something by itself, you are actually squaring it. So that's where this comes from. Now, an easy way to figure out what this number is here, this number will always be half of this number. So these have a relationship with each other. This one is half of this one. These also have a relationship. This number will be the square root of this number. All right, so let's take a look at our other parenthesis here. We're going to have a y. It's plus here, which means it's plus here. It's like this over here. This was minus, so that's minus. Half of 4 is 2. That's what goes here. Squared equals, add these together and you get 85. All right, and then the last step is to be in standard form. Anything in front of our parentheses, we need to move to the other side. So we're going to divide all these by 12. That will give you x minus 3/2 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 85 over 12. Now that means that the center of your circle would be positive 3/2, -2, and the radius of your circle would be the square root of 85/12. Okay. All right. Let's go to the ellipse. Same process, because we have these parentheses that are squared. X is squared and the Y's are squared. So we're going to do the same thing. Group the X's and group the Y's. So we have x squared, 6x squared plus 12x plus 9y squared minus 15y equals 25. All right, so we need to factor the 6 out here. Gives us x squared plus 2x plus, and we need to factor the 9 out here. Now, when you factor a 9 out of a 15, that's the same thing as saying 15 divided by 9. Well, that reduces to 5/3. So we're going to have minus 5/3 y. All right, so completing the square, divide this by 2, which is 1, and then square that, which is 1. We just added 6 to this side of the equation, 1 times 6. So we're going to add 6 to the right side. All right, we're going to divide this by 2. Well, 5/3 divided by 2 is 5/6. 5/6 squared is 25/36. Over here, we have to multiply 9 times 36, which gives you, or 9 times 25/36, which is 25/4. That's what we add over here to the right side. All right, so now writing this out, we get 6 multiplied by x plus 1 squared plus 9 times y minus 5/6 squared. And that's 5/6 because that's half of 5/3 equals, well, let's see what this comes out to right here. Common denominator is 4. So you're going to have 100/4 plus 24/4 plus 25/4. That's 149/4. Okay. You know what? These numbers stink.